G'day everyone, Goober here with a bit of a React video based on the Torchlight Community Managers QA video that was just published yesterday. Andre, aka Gordo, has gone through 10 questions that were asked of the community and given his responses. So I just wanted to give my own personal responses to the questions that were put out, as I somewhat disagree with some of the answers that were given.
First question. Hi there. I hope this reaches you well. Could you guys let us know if there are any plans for additional maps being added, as currently it gets quite repetitive seeing the same maps over and over again.
So in this one, Andre goes on to say that they are looking at a completely new procedurally generated map system. Whilst it sounds really cool, it has a lot of innate difficulties around that. Personally, I often run a lot of boss rush strategies where you just want the shortest path to the boss possible. Unfortunately for me, this would ruin that type of gameplay, and I really quite enjoy the simple boss rush strategy. So while it may be cool in the short term, I think procedurally generated maps in general are kind of terrible, and I would just like more map variety. Maybe they could change it up with, instead of just a boring elevator that goes down and wastes your time, make it so there's like river crossings or something to that effect, and just make the maps a little bit more interesting. And now for the second question.
Now, next one. Why was the DPS dummy capped again? If the rationale is to dissuade players from chasing big numbers without end, then why make content which requires more than 500 billion DPS to clear? This is a classic issue that basically dates to the introduction of dummies. We've tried various approaches in past seasons, from having a very low damage cap to basically having no damage cap at all. So what we found out is that when we do not have a damage cap at all, players tend to blindly chase the highest possible DPS number.
So that explanation to me is utter dribble and does not answer anything to do with the question. The question was, why is the dummy capped at 500 billion if the content that you want us to clear requires far more than 500 billion DPS? Now, my character this season did 3.5 trillion DPS. So I've written down my answers to the questions here. And this one, in my opinion, a DPS dummy, if 8.4 maps require 5 trillion DPS, then the dummy should have a 5 trillion DPS cap. If a build can't clear all content, then it stops being fun when you can't clear with that build. He goes on to say that if you're chasing just a higher damage cap, then you're not really playing all the other builds. Well, if that build that apparently is fun can only clear 7-2 and can never go up to clear 8, 8-1, 8-2, 8-3, 8-4 and do uber bosses, then that build obviously needs to be buffed. All builds should be able to clear the map. They should be able to do it at varying speeds. However, they still should be able to do all content. If you want interesting build diversity, make it so it's not just 1 or 2 different builds that can do that content. That kind of ties into the next question, which is the DPS display. I'll find that 1 second. In this one, it's the DPS display feels like a scam, because it is. In the game, if you play a minion build, it will say your DPS is about 27,000, and yet, you might be doing 3 trillion DPS. My solution to this is have the DPS display in the character screen just show your highest achieved dummy DPS. There, problem solved. Therefore, this, is a little bit more accurate because some builds it just shows that you have nothing. And then the problem with that, so this character's sheet DPS is 9 million DPS. Now this character does approximately 5 trillion DPS because it's swamp. Now if that was just an actual reflection of the dummy, then it'd be okay. So then when you come to Path of the Brave and it says that you need, what's this, 22 billion DPS. This is saying recommended DPS 22 billion sheet DPS. If you're not going to fix the character displayed DPS number here, remove anywhere that it says that you need a recommended DPS. Because when you try and do this, it pops up with a warning saying, hey bro, you don't have the damage. It's just a very lazy answer that was given for this question. Anywho, on to question number 4.
Okay, next question. Every season I like to play more than 5 builds, so why tax paper for Flame Elementium? This is just awful for me to make more than 1 build. So previously, before we actually implemented taxation, inflation within the game was a very strong issue, which actually caused the value of FE to, just crash.
So they're saying that no tax made the FE go down? That's not how inflation works. You know what causes inflation? Locking things like cogs of fate, etc. behind a mechanic. Now, I'm all for this being locked behind Black Sail. However, the drop rate of these needs to be jumped up a lot. So if you're making 500 FE an hour doing maps, it shouldn't take 12 hours to get a cog. Now, a way to combat the tax, in my opinion, is how they've suggested that if you create multiple characters, you'll get more tax tokens back. That's fantastic. I fully agree with that, but I also think that everyone should have at least 2 tabs of the auction house for free. And then anything other than that can be, paid for. But I still personally think that every tab that you buy should carry on to further seasons, but that's not how it is. 9 slots is not really enough because often when you're mapping, you'll have 9 slots worth of consumable stuff to sell. And then when you have something nice to sell, you can't sell it because you've only got 9 slots. 9 slots is... It really only benefits bots that just have like 50 accounts going. So it's just a sloppy thing. So more tax tokens is fantastic. The only time that tax really hurts someone is if they are flipping currency for a low margin. Personally, I've paid a ton of tax. I sold 130,000 Flame Elementium this season, so I'll show you another stat in a second. So this is Whispering Mist. Season, I gained 208,000 Flame Elementium. As you saw before, 129,000 was from trade, so about 70,000 not from trade, just from raw drops. So it's not the end of the world having a tax. You do get a fair bit of it back. I do have a lot unclaimed, but them's the breaks. I don't mind the tax in this. Anything that... I'm not going to get into it. Let's just move on. Now, this next one, in my opinion, is a little bit silly of a question.
Next up, are you working on a future expansion size update, or do you plan to just do season size updates forever? So for the foreseeable future, we do plan to continue developing Torchlight on a season basis.
If you look at other games, expansions add 1 or 2 more characters. In Torchlight, they add a character and a mechanic every single season, except for Whispering Mist. Whispering Mist was kind of a shit season, in my opinion. So let's just forget that season SS4 existed, because it was not a good season. There was a lot of quality of life downgrades introduced. There was one really good upgrade introduced, which is through the campaign, which didn't really have anything to do with the season mechanic or the season in general. So just to close this one off, we basically get an expansion every single season, as there's a new character, there's a new boss, there's a new way to scale your character, which you don't get from a lot of games, and if Blizzard was creating it, that would cost you $100 every single season. And just to, go over a couple of quick things. Allows us to
introduce changes more gradually, measure player reactions, player feedback, and then adjust as quickly as possible. Having said that, we have in fact considered the option of a full expansion size update. While it's not totally off the table, we do have to approach it very carefully because it requires a very large investment. And as you know, expansions, DLC in general, it may not necessarily be received very positively.
And at that point, it's basically Torchlight Infinite 2.0. Let's just keep improving on Torchlight Infinite because it's a really fun game to play, and we don't really need an expansion because expansions cost money generally, and people already think that this game's pay to win, and if there's an expansion, it's not going to reset that either. So I don't think whoever asked that question is really going to get what they wanted anyway.
1. Please add multiple plans for decks so we can create presets for farming. And the next one, what are your plans for the card system? In my opinion, should be rebalanced. So first, let's address trade cards. Trade cards have actually been a very large point of contention.
So with this one, I don't think it goes over or understands what people want with the trait decks. So what they really want is in Pack Spirits, we have different sets here. That's all we want for trait decks. Just to have, 6 different trait deck sets that we can easily switch between. That's a pretty easy one to give everyone because you already have the capability right here. Simple. Just add another little dot there with trait decks. Whatever. And in a previous video, I've gone through what I think they should do with the trait decks. Some things, for example, the item level 100 and 200 plasticity cards should just be consumed into maps. Once you unlock time mark 8, they should just be active. You shouldn't need to waste 2 cards on it. They always focus on useless cards. All this sort of stuff is okay-ish at the start of a season, but quickly becomes absolutely worthless. That could be just replaced by better confusion cards. Other things, I went into that in a fair bit of depth of what I thought that they should do in with trait cards, so I won't go over it again. If you're interested, just go and watch my Everything Wrong with Whispering Mist season, and I go into it in that. Another thing that they could really do better is have a better selection of confusion cards to choose from. It's just, whatever. And if they want to improve the... actually, I'll get to that in a bit. Alright, this one I kind of agree with.
Some questions about the UI. Any chance for the market UI to be more PC friendly, lower sizes, bit more stuff gets shown at a time, so on and so forth? Great one. So one of our top priorities at the moment is actually overall UI optimization. In this upcoming season, we've made a ton of adjustments with PC players in mind. And one of those exciting new adjustments that we made is the ability for PC players to freely adjust the size of not only UIs, but their text. Now, that aside, looking further ahead, we're actually working on developing from the ground up a brand new UI that hopefully can go head to head with our AAA competitors.
Basically, any UI updates, that's a thumbs up from me. Great quality of life upgrades, and they're generally pretty good at their quality of life upgrades, except for Whispering Mist. That was just crap. Anyway, this one.
Please allow us to lock 16 times NetherRealm Resonance, while still being able to refresh, so we don't have to spam it to 16 every single map. Yeah. Great idea. We're actually working on optimizing the overall mapping experience, and that is definitely one of the things on our radar.
This has been on their radar for quite a while. If we look at, you can look at all the previous Crow's Corners, and back in January, I asked for the exact same thing. My question was, when mapping, in the words of Sonic the Hedgehog, gotta go fast. When I'm juicing maps in the NetherRealm, I care little about the downside, and I just want to max juice, basically, is what I'm saying here. There could be a system like in Tier 1, it adds 1 NetherRealm, Tier 2 is 3, Tier 4 is 7, etc., all the way up to 31, which is basically going 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. Or having it lock in so you don't have to keep selecting it, or they could just have a system where it uses your last preset. I asked the same thing about compasses, and that was actually implemented this season. So they half gave me what I wanted here. They just didn't do the NetherRealm aspect of it. I gave further examples and stuff, but nothing has been implemented thus far. So we'll see what we get. The answer that was given in the Q&A is basically, you know, what they gave in January as well. And this one grinds my gears.
About control schemes. I have repetitive strain injury, so I'm forced into only playing builds which can utilize auto move. Is there any plan to add an auto move toggle keybind instead? Thank you for your feedback and for playing Torchlight.
The answer to this was basically use a controller. Now, in SS4 and previous, you had cast on channel. However, that was removed for Whispering Mist and locked everything behind activation mediums. So in previous seasons, you could just have a cast on channel build, and you could there's a setting that you can continually trigger movement abilities, so you could just press that once and run through the map, and you know, it was really easy to play the game. That was completely removed with Whispering Mist, and everything was locked behind activation mediums. So it's a nothing answer that's given here. They removed that capability from the game in the latest season. Will they backtrack on their decision? Who knows? Probably not. It's not something that devs seem to enjoy doing. Once something's put in, it's in to stay, just like crafting, which is coming up in a second. All right, now we have a question on crafting.
Questions regarding gear and crafting. First question, why is crafting so complicated? I am a new player that came back. I was playing Season 1 and now I am so overwhelmed.
Crafting in Season 1 was super basic, super deterministic, and honestly, it was boring. Crafting is still boring when you get to that stage. They've just added all this extra stuff in there to make it harder. I do a number of crafting videos where I explain that it's quite easy, but it is still essentially boring as batshit. You're still just doing reforge craft, reforge craft, reforge craft. It's just less deterministic now and more of an FE sync. And yeah, it's still boring as hell. It would be so much better if instead of reforge craft, it was just reforge until you hit whatever tier that you're aiming for. For example, in this example, I would have to do reforge, do not show again, and go until I hit the thing. Now, you have a tier reminder here that you set. Why can't I just have reforge until tier reminder? Now, I got lucky and got tier 0 there. Again, on this one, it's tier 1. In Season SS1, Reforge didn't exist. It was accept or not accept. So you would, in Season 1, I would now have a 3 tier 0 item. I wouldn't have a chance of removing this energy shield. Now, if I craft that and I don't hit what I want, I got lucky then I would have to reforge and go again. And then I would waste so much effort. Let's just put on the last one and see what we get. Oops. So aura effect, now if I don't get what I want, I've got a blemish, I have to restart. So then you would have to go reforge and then just keep spamming it over and over and over and over and over and over and over. This isn't fun. This is boring. I would much rather hit reforge until reminder. Next one, hit craft, I didn't get it. Now I have to go back and just keep spamming reforge over and over and over again until I hit it. Then I go to the next one, I didn't get it. Now I've got to go back and this is boring. Just give us a reforge until for there, and then take these aspects and apply them to Dreamforge crafting, because Dreamforge is even worse. It's like another crafting mechanic without the reforge, and it just takes way too long. Basically, anytime they try and, air quotes, improve crafting, they make it worse. Plasticity is the worst thing that they ever did to crafting, and it's here to stay.
Hard work in this season. Playing for this season, I have wondered what's the intent behind making level 100 gear and locking it behind 2 time mark 8 cards. And finally, can I understand that the Torchlight team is more than satisfied with the current state of crafting, especially in terms of randomness and cost? Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack here. So first of all, let's talk about complexity. We originally designed Torchlight to be more streamlined and fast-paced than other ARPGs. However, mechanics can start piling up and the game can start to feel more complex than it originally should be. This is one of the primary issues that we want to address this season. Secondly, we're aware of issues with our current gear system and drops. As it stands right now, many players have found that drops can be very useless for the endgame, making the overall
easy solution, make it so tier 0s can innately drop on gear, remove plasticity, make it so when you are upgrading from tier 1 to tier 0, that still exists, but make it so you can only upgrade 2 things to tier 0, so you can ultimately get a 3 tier 0 base to then do the rest of the crafting on. It's simple. You're not going to get an answer from this QA.
Overall transition from mid-game to end-game a little bit awkward, and honestly can make looting not feel as rewarding as it should be.
And the foolish thing about it is you need to get to time mark 8, which is a hard level of content to go from 7.2 to 8 to unlock item level 100, plasticity 200, the ability to craft tier 0 items. You need that gear to be able to unlock that gear. It's mind-blowingly stupid.
I can tell you right now is that with this upcoming season, we've totally revamped crafting, legendaries, and gear drops in general. Now, I can't tell you too much right.
And generally, every time they do that, they make it worse. So take that with a grain of salt, and it'll be interesting to see what they actually do in the upcoming season. And I'll let Andre close this video out.
I want to dive deeper into all the changes that we're making to gear, crafting, cards, and so much more. Remember to stay tuned to our season reveal coming on the 29th, this Saturday. That's all for today. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll catch you in the next one.